This is the 2012 Acura RL. This is Acura's flagship product in America, and although it is due to be replaced in 2013 with an all-new model, check out thetruthaboutcars.com for information coming up soon on that one after the New York Auto Show. Let's take a look and see what makes this older model tick. Under the hood of the RL, we find Acura's 3.7-liter V6 engine that's used in a wide variety of products. And in this particular car, it produces 300 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. Power sent to all four wheels via a brand new 6-speed automatic transmission that's new as of 2011, and Acura's super handling all-wheel drive system labeled SH-AWD. Now we'll talk about that in a bit, but just to put that in perspective, Volvo's S80 produces 300 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque with an optional ECU update to 325 horsepower and around 350 pound-feet of torque. The RL isn't exactly slow, but it is heavy at about 4,100 pounds, and our 0 to 60 tests clocked this car in around 6 seconds, which is slightly faster than previous generation RLs with the 5-speed automatic. Now we're here in the back for one good reason, and that's because the Acura RL, despite being based on the same platform as the Honda Accord and the Acura TL, has Honda's most advanced super handling all-wheel drive system that's unique to the RL and actually unique across all the Honda product line, and that's because it can actually send more power to the rear wheels. Now, in systems like Volvo's S80 and Lincoln's MKS, the system actually can't send more than 50% of the power to the rear wheels, and there's a reason for that. That's because the rear differential and the front differential can only be mechanically connected to one another via a clutch pack. There's no center differential in those machines. There's really just a clutch pack that allows them to connect or disconnect and vary that connection between the two. Acura fixes this problem by inserting an overdrive unit between the differential and the transmission to allow the rear wheels to spin up to 5.7% faster in the rear than the front. Now this is unique to the RL because the TL and the MDX have a fixed overdrive unit at 1.7% faster than the front wheels, and it can either connect or disconnect that from the transmission, but the RL can actually vary this overdrive of the rear wheels up to 5.7% as well as disconnect them from the front of the car. So when you're driving along in a corner, you can actually make the rear wheels spin faster than the front wheels, which has the effect of being able to put more power to the rear than just 50%. In addition, via the electronic rear differential, it can actually shuttle that power from one side to the other. So this allows up to 70% of the power to be sent to the rear, and all of that 70% of the power can be sent to just one rear wheel. And here in the rear, the RL begins to show its age, especially compared to its younger sister, the Acura TL. The rear seat is not exactly large compared to some of the competition. This seat's adjusted for a 6'4" passenger. I'm 6 feet tall, and my knees are fairly close to that front seat. Although the rear seat is fairly comfortable, and we have a fairly nice center armrest here with integrated cup holders, and we have decent headrests that automatically fold into the rear. The Acura RL is a fairly nice place to spend your time on the inside, but it is beginning to show its age a little bit compared to the recently refreshed Volvo S80 and of course the Lincoln MKS, both of which have at least the option of a stitched dashboard, which really dresses up the cabin to more full-size, full luxury brand standards. That's not an option in the RL. Also, the infotainment system is fairly low resolution and fairly old, and this center console has a wide variety of buttons on them that are very similarly sized and shaped, and so it's a little bit difficult to find what you're after in the dark. Aside from the tech being slightly outdated and there being no stitched dashboard, there really is very little to complain about on the inside. Everything is finished exactly like you would expect in a car of this price category. There really are no corners cut and no cheap seams or hard edges or harsh plastics to be found in this cabin. Button minimalism seems to be very in vogue lately, with things like iDrive and Command and Volvo Sensus system and Ford Sync system, for instance. Everybody seems to be going after the buttons, except for Acura, that is. There are a lot of buttons here in the RL. We have our climate control buttons here up top, we have our radio here, we have our infotainment and navigation screen controls here with this knob, which is sort of a joystick and has a rotary section on the knob. It's actually fairly easy to use once you get used to the menus. And then over here on the steering wheel, Acura continues their love of buttons, having not just the usual array of buttons on the steering wheel spoke here, and some buttons here to control the trip computer, and on the other side we have our phone buttons, we have this other set of buttons here, which is kind of interesting. So we have two voice command buttons. This is voice command for the phone, and this is voice command for the nav system, and their own set of back buttons, which is a little bizarre. And if you opt for the radar cruise control, you get a radar cruise control distance button here. And then on this side, we get the usual radio buttons. Of course, there's some buttons lurking there next to the dials, and we have another array over there. As I said before, the RL really isn't a spring chicken, and there really aren't too many things that would draw your attention to that fact, aside from this infotainment and navigation system. As you can see on the screen, the graphics really are not very high resolution. We can actually zoom in a little bit more, and you can see they really don't get too much better further in. Further out, you can see that they're definitely not as snazzy as the more modern Lexus systems, or even the brand new system in the Acura TL, for instance. Now, we do have access to just about everything in this system. This is really more of a testament to how modern the RL was when it first was introduced in 2005, and the system has changed very little since then. Over here on the audio tab, we do have access to our iPod. So right now we're on XM satellite radio, which is standard in this model. We get access to our DVD. This is just DVD audio, not DVD video. Over here on the iPod menu, we have full access to iPod playlists, including smart lists. However, the system really didn't work very well with my iPhone 4, and that is a little bit of a concern if you have newer iPods. It did, however, work fine with my iPad 3, as well as my iPod Nano. That's the more recent little tiny square one. So you have full access to your playlists, although the system does get a little bit laggy if you're scrolling down. As you can see, it took a little while to fill that playlist in. But you do have access to just about everything on your iPod, which is very nice. And again, a testament to how modern the system was when it was first introduced. There really isn't anything that the system won't do for you that you would normally associate with a modern system. It just doesn't do any of those things as elegantly as the latest Acura system, or as many of the competitive systems like Volvo's brand new Sensus system. Here on these windy mountain roads, Acura's super handling all-wheel drive system really shines, and that's because it can overdrive that outside rear wheel in these corners. And while it doesn't really make the RL handle like a true rear-wheel drive car, it doesn't handle like a front-wheel drive car either. It really handles, it's quite fun actually. By overpowering that outside rear wheel, it actually gets the car to almost oversteer. I wouldn't quite call it oversteer. It's definitely not understeering like a front-wheel drive car. It's not heading for the bushes. You know, if you're in a corner and you're coming on a little bit hot, your natural instinct might be to slow down a little bit in a front-heavy car like the Acura RL. But it's actually more fun if you instead apply more power, because then you can actually, you know, get that super handling all-wheel drive system to work for you and help pivot the car around that corner. It's quite entertaining, actually.